Hello, welcome to Parker Live. My name is Christina Holtzhauser. I'm an executive assistant at Parker Staffing. For those of you who haven't joined a Parker Live before, the purpose is really to put some good into the world. We're hoping that you leave feeling recharged and maybe even learn something new. Today, we have the founder of I Love It When and the co-host of the podcast Finally Clicked from Seattle, Margaret Smith. Hey, Margaret.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm excited that you're here today.
Me too. I know it's, of course, when you catch me the one time when I'm not actually in Seattle.
I know.
So fun.
That's all right. I'm glad you're getting out there.
All right.
So I was wondering if you could just start out by, introducing yourself and sharing your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Margaret Smith, and I often go by Mo. The last 8 years of my professional career, I've been working on a real estate team called Pickett Street Properties, and they're just out of the Bothell, Washington area. And I've been their team admin and then executive assistant. And then my last day was on Friday, and I was the director of operations. So before that, though, I grew up in Seattle. I have 3 younger brothers, big family in the Seattle area. I went to school down in Tacoma, pretty much have stayed local my whole life. Got my graduate degree in social work at the University of Washington. And then I went on to coach volleyball at a local school. And then I went to the Seattle Art Museum, and I was the docent program coordinator there for about 5 years before I found Pickett Street. So always been in the Seattle area. I love people. And right now I'm really excited to kind of launch off in the next evolution of myself with starting this new company and growing even more. So, yeah.
Well, that's really exciting, and congrats on your new business venture. Could you tell us a little bit about that and what it entails?
Totally. Yeah, I'm going to be kind of doing a launch in August, I believe, is when I'm hoping to aim to launch it. But the gist behind it is that in my time in the real estate industry and just my time in school and in life, I've learned a lot about business and a lot about humans and a lot about communication. And I love helping people discover what they're really good at, what their potential is, and then empowering them to kind of take hold of their own journey and really own it and run with it and execute on it. And so with the I Love It When concept, the I Love It When idea came from a woman whose name is Enmay Mangles, and she's actually out of Federal Way, Washington. She's a strategic intuitive advisor. And so she has this way of working with people where she says, change your mindset to and statement in your head to, I love it when, ... And so I love it when I feel this way. I love it when I do this. And it's a concept that I really loved, and I think will apply really well to everything I want to do, which will be, I do annual retreats right now for admin and real estate. And I think when we spoke before this time, I was telling you that I'm looking at opening that up to admin in any industry. And so depending on what goes on in the rest of 2020 with COVID and everything, I will be launching at least 4 retreats a year. 1 will always be for admin in real estate, but the other 3 will be for admin from any industry. And so that the company I Love It When will be the retreats. It'll also be speaking opportunities if people want me to come and teach my classes or speak on topics. I will also be coaching. Primarily admin in real estate right now is definitely a passion of mine, but I also do a lot of consulting with business owners and other admin in other industries all the time. And then I just like the essence of what I realized I really love to do is that I love collaboration. I love networking, and I love working with a bunch of different people. So I'm also talking to a couple different companies about facilitating different things that they do within their organization. So my I Love It When place will be kind of like the home base for everything I'm working out of. But my goal is really to start a movement to get people to really be comfortable with being themselves. And that's the kind of the root of everything that I do.
I love that. That's so positive, and I love that title. That is just such a good name for a company. It just makes me feel good to hear. I love it when. Good.
That's good. I want it to make all of my marketing, whatever I put out there, I always like it to. One of my friends said it's kind of like a hug over the internet. Like I feel like you're just
a hug over the internet. That's so great. Well, perfect. Well, I wanted to dive into the topic. So I was wondering, what it means to you to be an empowered and indispensable professional.
Yes, I thought that was a great concept after we chatted about it. So the idea of being empowered, there's lots of different ways that people think about it. And what I've discovered is that the more that I've learned about myself and put myself in uncomfortable arenas, the more I've learned what I'm really good at and and how much I'm actually capable of. And when you realize what you're capable of, you can't really ignore it. And that's where that feeling of, okay, well, I know how I performed in these arenas where I had no experience, or I know how I did when I went out on stage and I spoke to those 200 people when I thought I was going to pass out, and I didn't. And the more I put myself out there, the more I realized it was really up to me to empower myself, and by putting myself in all those different arenas. And the more I did it, the more I realized what I was capable of, which then created a completely different Margaret in the workplace. So when I went into the office with Pickett Street, since most of my development, I would really say, has happened in the last 8 years while I was there, because of the concept that Keller Williams Realty is the brokerage that we hung our license at. So Pickett Street's the team, and then Keller Williams is over us. And they're really all about personal development. And so I really realized that once I had started working on myself, I couldn't stop. Because when I came into the office, I owned my role. I owned what I did. And then I wanted to go above and beyond because I knew what was possible, what I was capable of. And so there's that empowered piece. And then the indispensable piece, I really have to give credit to my mom around that, because I learned really quickly that if you want to kind of find your place within a company and make sure that you never lose your job, it's actually fairly easy. Most people just don't want to do the work. And so I made it my business to know every aspect of my job. And then once I knew that, I went beyond that. And I would find out, how could I help other people in my department, like at the Seattle Art Museum? How could I help people in other areas of the education department or the volunteer department? I want to know everyone. I made it my business to know everybody in every department and what they did from the bottom floor to the top floor. And everybody knew me. And then I always go above and beyond. And so the benefit of going above and beyond is not only to the people that you're serving, it's actually a huge benefit to yourself. It's a way of like, I kind of believe it's like, well, the more good you put out, the more good you get back. And so by doing that, you quickly become indispensable. And so when I was at the museum, as an example, I survived like 3 different furloughs. The company that we were going through the downturn at the time in 2011, or no, 9 and 10. And my boss actually worked to save my role, and keep me at the museum. And it was just a great example to me of how that really works. And so I think a lot of people are afraid to kind of put themselves, first of all, in that uncomfortable area. Most people know what they need to get better at, and they're just afraid of what it's going to feel like or what people are going to think. And then they don't want to do the work to be indispensable because they don't really see the benefit of it. And so I like to talk about that a lot too, because I think a lot of people, I don't know if, not that they're lazy, I just think they don't understand the ROI of going above and beyond and having integrity with everything that you do. Like if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm absolutely going to do it. And I'll probably exceed your expectations because I really worked hard to build trust with every human that I meet, because that above and beyond anything else means the most to me. So yeah, I think executive assistants that I've met over the years, the ones that have been some of the best examples to me are the ones that I know you don't even have to question, if you're doing an event with them, that something's not going to happen. You know it's going to happen, and you know they're going to follow through. And that's just, it's such a relief.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I'm just curious if there's any examples of like, I don't know, like let's say somebody is trying to figure out, well, how can I go in above and beyond? Like how can people start thinking that way or start doing that?
You know that on the job description where oftentimes they put like other duties as described or as needed?
Yeah.
I will often, and there has to be a balance too. Like there's always this point where I've learned over the last couple of years, more like the last 10, where I know where my breaking point is and I know where I can't handle more. But until I get to that point, I will at an event, or if I have like a weekly meeting with my boss, I would say, is there anything else? Like, what else are you working on right now? Do you need help brainstorming on something? Like, or if they're talking about something that they're working on, I'll say, well, hey, I could type that up for you, or hey, I could run that errand for you, or hey, I could work on that project with you. And so it's all about offering. And again, I think there are too few people in this world that offer assistance, like not just as EAs, but as humans. We just don't offer help because we don't want to overextend ourselves. And I just think we're not used to, honestly, like working together as much as a community as we should be. And so it's not that hard. It's really just looking at your own job duties. And then in the middle of the day, like I often tell people as a way to start thinking this way, put a Post-it note on your monitor and just tell yourself, like, ask one person today what I could do to help them. Or like look up from your desk on a break or on your lunch break, whatever, and see what else you could do to make someone's days better. And it's as simple as that. And as you begin to integrate that and you walk throughout life with that, pretty soon you start to see the ROI of that.
I love that. Well, and it sounds like you've learned how to like pick it up in conversation too. Like you ask questions and then you can kind of get there and learn how you can provide more help.
I have to say, like, I think asking questions is probably the best tool I have in my toolbox out of anything in my whole life. I will ask questions, and people who know me know this. I will sit down to dinner with someone, and if they're not careful, they'll talk the entire time because I will just ask them question after question. Because I learned so much. It helps me as much as it may help them, but it really helps me a lot to understand them better and to understand how to better serve people.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that's so good. And then I know one of the questions I wanted to ask you, so just going back to like empowering, is how can people help to empower like others around them?
Great question. I think one of the best things that I've learned is that by asking questions and really paying attention to people, because I would say one of the things that I've noticed working in the different jobs that I've had is when people listen, they call it like active listening. People aren't always very active or engaged listeners. And when you're engaged and you ask questions, you can find out what people really love to do and what gets them excited and passionate. And so what I like to do is when I get to know someone, if I see something in them, a certain potential to do something, I will call it out. I will text it to them, I'll call them, I'll tell them the next time I see them in person, and they'll look at me like, you really think I could do that? And I say, I know you could do that because I've been watching you. Here's the skills that you have. Here's what I see other people do. Now it's up to you on whether or not you want to do it, but I'm just letting you know this is a talent that I see in you. And when you begin to give people like this positive reinforcement, that's not fluff. It's not just being kind, it's real. And they know that you're being real because they know you enough. For the most part, when I say this to people, I know them, I've known them for a little while. You see them begin to take baby steps. And then I've seen people that have come to my retreat as an example, and they don't just get that feedback from me, but they get feedback from the other attendees. They have taken some leaps. They've come back, asked for raises, they've left their jobs, they've made changes in their personal life. And so I think we just have to see the highest potential in people and be willing to call that out with honesty and, in a way that gets them thinking that they might actually have some potential where they didn't see it or something. And all of a sudden you see this light go on in people and they get really excited. So I think you just have to call it out in people and really pay attention.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's a really good tip, just to call it out and be genuine about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think people often give compliments, or like maybe in the workplace, in the corporate world, it's a little bit different than real estate's such like a funny Wild West kind of a place.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it's so different from any other job I've ever had. It was a fabulous experience because of that. But in the museum, maybe I could say like there were people that maybe they wanted to give a compliment, but they didn't really think about the compliment. They just wanted to give it. So when you really take the time to think about it and make it specific to that person, then they will receive it in a much different way because they realize that you really are looking at them and you see them. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is, how people struggle with negotiating. I'm just curious, why is that an important skill as an empowered and indispensable professional?
I love this topic. Yeah, and I'm definitely still learning in this area. But I would say I told Jesse Moore is the owner of Pickett Street. And when I joined in 2012, I said to him within the first year, I said, one of the main things I want you to teach me right now, and this for as long as we work together, is how to negotiate. Because I have always felt unempowered, so powerless, intimidated, fearful, all of those things as a woman in negotiation, and then also just in business in general. And I talk about this in one of the classes that I teach too. And so the importance of it is we have to be able to stand up for ourselves, and not only in the professional workplace, but in the world. And so the importance of it is I don't want people to think of it like, I think some people think it's manipulative, and it doesn't need to be. I think the people that use manipulation are not necessarily the people that I want to negotiate with. Anyways. Yeah. Negotiation is really more just about stating your case, why you believe you deserve what you deserve, and being able to say it in a tone and with body language that is calm, clear, concise. And so one of the books that I wanted to make sure to mention is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And it's a really awesome read. And I also recommend it on audio because his voice is like, he's an FBI agent, I think. It's been a while since I read it, but he talks all about negotiating as if your life depended on it. And so he gives us like all the tactics that they use when people have like barricaded themselves in a house and he has to get them out. And what's really interesting is I took away a lot about body language, tone, paying attention, listening, and there's skills that you can apply in all areas of your life. And I never realized that when I tried to negotiate before this, my voice probably got higher. People could sense that I was nervous, and it just didn't do me any sort of good. And so this is going to be like a lifelong learning process for me, I know, but I have to say, like, the number one thing that I do now that I never did before is I always ask. Meaning, like, if I'm booking a VRBO for the team to go somewhere, I always ask for a different price. When I go somewhere, and if I were going to go buy a car, I would probably take someone with me still because I'm not super comfortable with that, but I would always ask, because by not asking, you get nothing. And by asking, you might get something. You just don't get anything if you don't ask. And so I think that's just been, and that's not necessarily a negotiation tactic. That's just learning how to ask for something. But I think I was never really taught that. And so it's an important aspect of just realizing that we need to ask for what we want.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a good place to start too, though, because even if maybe it's not a part of like, actual negotiation tactics, at least you're starting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll share, like, when I went to Jesse and asked for a raise, fortunately, most of the time I was there, I didn't even have to ask. He just would give me like raises along the way and bonuses. But one of the last times I did ask him, I wrote out a proposal, and I've shared that proposal with people because all it did was state the purpose, the intention behind me asking for a raise. And then it gave 3 ways that could work out, that we could work that out within my job. And then what I wanted the outcome to be. And just by giving him that piece of paper that he had the ability to read over and understand that my intentions were, of course, like always positive and always good, that was a really great exercise for me to go through in terms of just beginning a negotiation for a raise. So, and that's not something that gets talked about too often either.
No, not at all. Well, that's sweet that you share that with people so they can learn how to do it themselves. And that's interesting that you did 3 different options for him.
Well, I definitely have learned that when, at least when I'm going to someone that I work for, or someone who maybe runs a major company, that you always want to go with options. You don't want to just go with a problem or with a concern or a situation. You want to say, well, here's what's going on, and here are some options that I've thought of. And then that way, they have the ability and the control to pick which one they think is great. And all of them are win-wins in my picture, like in my book that I've suggested. So yeah.
That's a good tactic. I love that. Well, and we're running out of time. So I know you wanted to share about the Pacific Northwest operations retreat.
Yeah, for sure. Especially for EAs out there and assistants and admin that are not in the real estate industry that I haven't met before. So right now the retreat's called the Pacific Northwest Operations Retreat. And that name may be changing a little bit, but the idea behind it will not. It's a retreat for admin where it's like a Thursday night through a Sunday morning, and I bring in major speakers from all over the country. As an example, one of the most recent ones, I had Gary John Bishop, who wrote the book Unfuck Yourself, and then Enmei Mangles, who I mentioned, and then Susan Scott, who's the author of Fierce Conversations, is coming to the one this year. And so I bring in high level speakers, I bring in a high level caterer. I really create an experience that's unlike what we get a lot of the time. That's just for admin, and there's no more than typically 45 people there. I rent a VRBO, a big cabin, so we're all in one space together. And essentially it's 80% personal development and then 20% networking opportunities. So it's really a chance, because oftentimes, at least in the real estate industry, we have not been given the opportunity to explore personal development as much as the real estate agents get. And so my goal was to create an environment that was specifically for admin, that was extremely high value, that was unlike anything that they ever got to experience. And I've done it for 4 years in a row now, and it's just been a huge success. The last one sold out in like 48 hours. So that's why I realized, like, now's the time, Margaret, that you have to, like, I need to do this thing. I need to do it on a higher scale, and I want to do it across the US to give people an opportunity to attend that haven't before. So yeah, you can find it on Facebook to follow it and just keep up to date on it, announcements, and then when on the next one's coming. everything like
So
that.
is it just under PNW Operations Retreat on Facebook?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. I just want to make sure people know where to find it. And
Yeah.
then, so where else can people find you online? I want to make sure people know how to connect with you.
Oh, thank you. Now, one of the best places you can find me is Instagram, just because I'm there and it's becoming more of the daily way to communicate with people. So my handle right now is just _Margaret_Smith. And then on Facebook, it's Margaret Macaulay Smith, but I think you can find me just by searching Margaret Smith, Seattle, Pickett Street, probably. You can find me, but I'm on those places all the time. It's actually a huge arena for me to meet new people and network with folks. So it's definitely a great way to reach out. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to, learn, see I Love It When and see how that grows. And I would love it if you would share your link with me when that's live. That would be great.
I will. No, I appreciate that very much.
It's been so fun having you here today, Margaret. I appreciate your time and your tips.
Thank you. This was really fun. Yeah.
Really fun. Oh, well, thank you again. Enjoy Denver.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.